Peace, love, divine light, society. You are now tuned in to Marz Majik, brought to you by Voices Radio, where valuable opportunities inspire collaborations to elevate society. Right here on our community station, WUTU 88.3. Remember, once you exit your vehicles, you can always stay tuned and keep it locked by joining us on the web at WUTU883FM.com. I am Nexus, and I am so happy to be here. Um, this is
It's
definitely
going to
going to
be an
be an
amazing
amazing
evening
evening
of
of
parent
parent
leadership
leadership
and
and
awareness.
awareness.
All
All
right.
right.
So
So
do
do
know
know
that
that
we
we
are
are
holding
holding
space
space
for a
for a
conversation
conversation
rooted
rooted
in
in
lived
lived
experience,
experience,
community
community
wisdom,
wisdom,
and
and
collective
collective
care.
care.
February
February
is
is
Parent
Parent
Leadership
Leadership
Month,
Month,
a
a
time
time
to
to
recognize
recognize
parents
parents
not
not
just
just
as
as
caregivers,
caregivers,
however,
however,
to
to
acknowledge
acknowledge
them
them
as
as
actual
actual
leaders,
leaders,
advocates,
advocates,
and
and
architects
architects
of
of
change
change
within
within
our
our
community.
community.
All
All
right.
right.
So
So
before
before
we
we
begin,
begin,
every
every
show
show
we
we
start
start
off
off
with
with
a
a
breathing
breathing
exercise
exercise
just to
just to
bring
bring
us
us
into
into
the
the
space.
space.
We
We
breathe
breathe
in
in
through
through
our
our
nose,
nose,
hold,
hold,
let
let
your
your
body
body
arrive
arrive
fully
fully
in
in
this
this
moment.
moment.
All
All
right.
right.
And
And
then
then
you
you
will
will
exhale
exhale
through
through
the
the
mouth,
mouth,
releasing
releasing
what
what
you're
you're
carrying.
carrying.
All
All
right.
right.
And
And
so,
so,
again,
again,
as
as
we
we
prepare
prepare
to
to
inhale,
inhale,
we
we
inhale
inhale
intention
intention
and
and
exhale
exhale
distraction.
distraction.
So
So
on
on
three,
three,
breathe
breathe
with
with
me.
me.
One,
One,
two,
two,
three.
three.
Inhale,
Inhale,
exhale.
exhale.
One
One
more
more
time.
time.
Let's
Let's
inhale
inhale
clarity.
clarity.
One,
One,
two,
two,
three.
three.
Exhale
Exhale
all
all
of
of
those
those
doubts
doubts
and
and
fears
fears
that
that
we
we
might
might
be
be
holding
holding
on
on
to.
to.
Our
Our
affirmation
affirmation
to
to
get
get
us
us
going
going
this
this
round
round
is
is
I
I
honor
honor
lived
lived
experience
experience
as
as
wisdom.
wisdom.
I
I
lead
lead
with
with
care,
care,
courage,
courage,
and
and
purpose.
purpose.
Again,
Again,
that's
that's
I
I
honor
honor
lived
lived
experience
experience
as
as
wisdom.
wisdom.
I
I
lead
lead
with
with
care,
care,
courage,
courage,
and
and
purpose.
purpose.
The
The
views
views
and
and
experiences
experiences
shared
shared
during
during
this
this
program
program
are
are
those
those
of
of
the
the
host
host
and
and
guests
guests
and
and
do
do
not
not
necessarily
necessarily
reflect
reflect
the
the
views and
views and
perspectives
perspectives
of
of
WUTU
WUTU
or
or
its
its
affiliates.
affiliates.
This
This
space
space
is
is
for
for
education,
education,
reflection,
reflection,
and
and
community
community
dialogue.
dialogue.
Before we
Before we
move
move
into
into
tonight's
tonight's
conversation,
conversation,
I
I
want to
want to
ground
ground
us
us
in
in
what
what
parent
parent
leadership
leadership
and
and
parent
parent
leadership
leadership
month
month
truly
truly
represents.
represents.
It's
It's
all
all
about
about
recognizing
recognizing
parents
parents
as
as
leaders,
leaders,
decision
decision
makers,
makers,
and
and
change
change
agents.
agents.
Again,
Again,
not
not
just
just
caregivers.
caregivers.
Parents
Parents
are
are
often
often
the
the
first
first
advocates
advocates
for
for
their
their
children,
children,
and
and
long
long
before
before
policies,
policies,
programs, or
programs, or
institutions
institutions
ever
ever
existed
existed
and
and
entered the
entered the
picture,
picture,
there
there
were
were
parents.
parents.
And
And
leadership
leadership
doesn't
doesn't
require
require
a
a
title.
title.
It
It
begins
begins
with
with
showing
showing
up,
up,
speaking
speaking
up,
up,
and
and
standing
standing
firm
firm
for
for
our
our
children
children
and
and
our
our
communities.
communities.
So
So
tonight,
tonight,
we're
we're
not
not
talking
talking
about
about
parents.
parents.
We're
We're
listening
listening
to
to
them.
them.
We're
We're
honoring
honoring
lived
lived
experience
experience
as
as
leaders
leaders
and
and
as
as
community
community
representatives
representatives
who
who
have
have
most
most
definitely
definitely
gained
gained
wisdom
wisdom
along the
along the
way.
way.
So,
So,
family,
family,
tonight
tonight
we
we
are
are
joined
joined
by
by
two
two
powerful
powerful
voices,
voices,
parents,
parents,
advocates,
advocates,
and
and
leaders
leaders
who
who
approach
approach
their
their
work,
work,
this
this
work,
work,
from
from
lived
lived
experience
experience
and
and
systems
systems
level
level
understanding.
understanding.
We
We
have
have
Joanna
Joanna
Jackson,
Jackson,
who
who
brings
brings
an
an
authentic
authentic
lived
lived
experience
experience
centered
centered
perspective
perspective
to
to
parent
parent
leadership,
leadership,
rooted
rooted
in
in
advocacy,
advocacy,
resilience,
resilience,
and
and
transformation.
transformation.
Alongside
Alongside
Cassenda
Cassenda
Nelson,
Nelson,
whose
whose
approach to
approach to
parent
parent
leadership
leadership
is
is
from
from
a
a
community
community
and
and
systems
systems
lens,
lens,
focusing
focusing
on
on
collaboration,
collaboration,
representation,
representation,
and
and
sustainable
sustainable
change.
change.
Ladies,
Ladies,
welcome
welcome
to
to
Marz
Mars
Magic.
Magic.
How
How
are
are
y'all
y'all
feeling?
feeling?
I feel real good.
Me too.
Feeling good, feeling great. How are you?
Okay,
Okay,
so
so
before
before
we
we
get
get
started,
started,
for
for
those
those
who
who
are
are
tuned
tuned
in,
in,
listening,
listening,
and
and
might
might
not
not
know
know
who
who
you
you
are
are
and
and
what
what
you
you
stand
stand
for
for
and
and
why
why
parent
parent
leadership
leadership
is
is
important to
important to
you.
you.
If
If
you
you
would
would
just
just
tell
tell
us
us
in
in
your
your
own
own
words
words
who
who
you
you
are,
are,
where
where
you're
you're
from,
from,
and
and
what
what
you
you
represent.
represent.
Well,
Well,
first,
first,
I
I
am a
am a
parent.
parent.
I
I
have
have
4
4
children.
children.
I
I
am
am
from
from
Camilla,
Camilla,
Georgia.
Georgia.
And
And
what
what
brought
brought
me
me
here?
here?
A
A
lot
lot
of
of
lived
lived experiences,
experiences, a
a
lot
lot
of
of failures,
failures where
where
I
I
chose
chose
not
not
to
to
give
give
up,
up,
to
to
step
step
into
into
the
the
space,
space,
even
even
if
if
I
I
failed,
failed,
but I
but I
refused to
refused to
stop.
stop going.
My name is Joanna Jackson. I'm from Albany, Georgia. I'm a parent. I
I
have
have
3
3
girls,
girls,
and
and
I'm a
I'm a
grandparent.
grandparent.
What
What
brought
brought
me
me
here
here
is
is my
me as
me
a
as a
parent and
parent
my
and my
lived
lived
experience.
experience.
Okay,
Okay,
all
all right.
right.
Well,
Well,
thank
thank
you
you
all
all
for
for
being
being
here
here
and
and
coming
coming
to
to
share
share
some
some
of
of
those
those
experiences.
experiences.
So,
So,
when
when
you
you
hear
hear
the
the
phrase
phrase
parent
parent
leadership,
leadership,
what
what
does
does
that
that
mean
mean
to
to
you
you
personally,
personally,
being
being
a
a
parent,
parent,
being a
being a
grandparent?
grandparent?
I would say actually stepping in spaces, being your authentic self, using your lived experience to advocate for yourself and your children. Parents are their children first advocates. So, when I think about that, I think about the being authentic, being able to learn along the way also.
And for me, um, I think about some of the same things that she does. However, I didn't have anyone to advocate for me. And I had to learn how to advocate for myself. And when I step into spaces with other parents, I want them to see my resilience.
Okay.
Okay,
So,
so
when
when
we
we
think
think
about
about
the
the
community
community
perspective,
perspective,
if
if
you
you
would
would
share
share
individually
individually
why
why
you
you
feel
feel
like
like
parent
parent
leadership
leadership
is
is
essential,
essential,
because,
because
like you
like you
mentioned,
mentioned,
Cassenda,
Cassenda,
you
you
didn't
didn't
have
have
that
that
advocacy
advocacy
as a
as a
child,
child
or
or
even
even
as a
as a
mother,
mother,
right?
right?
But
But
you
you
were
were
able
able
to
to
find
find
that.
that.
And
And
some
some
parents
parents
do
do
move
move
through
through
life,
life, just
just like
like
I'm
I'm
a
a
parent.
parent.
I
I
gave
gave
life
life
to
to
you.
you.
Now
Now
you
you
go
go
find
find
your
your
way.
way.
So
So
from a
from a
communal
communal
standpoint,
standpoint,
why
why
is
is
parent
parent
leadership
leadership
actually
actually
important,
important,
not
not
only
only
to
to
the
the
child,
child,
but
but
to
to
the
the
community
community
as a
as a
whole?
whole?
Because we're the ones who set the tone for our children. When, as a parent, I want to give my children the better me, children around them the better me, so we can guide and correct them in the right place. Did I make all the right decisions? No. However, I've learned, and through me being a parent, I've learned from my children. So a lot of things I got along with raising them. So when I step out into the community, I see all children as mine. They're mine. I didn't birth them, but if they need someone to stand in the gap for them, I will be more than happy to do that because sometimes I didn't have that. And leadership is just a word. Action is what I look for.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
And
And
you
you
said
said
something
something
that
that
I've
I've
always
always
felt
felt
was
was
vital,
vital,
whether
whether
it
it
was
was
a
a
teacher,
teacher,
because
because
you're
you're
the
the
first
first
teachers.
teachers.
Well,
Well,
we're
we're
the
the
first
first
teachers,
teachers,
even
even
speaking
speaking
from
from
a
a
parental
parental
perspective.
perspective.
And
And
so
so
when
when
I
I
hear
hear
other
other
communal
communal
people
people
in
in
these
these
quote
quote
unquote
unquote
titled
titled
roles,
roles,
right?
right?
Who
Who
don't
don't
have
have
that
that
same
same
passion
passion
for
for
our
our
future,
future,
and
and
they
they
don't
don't
see
see
every
every
child
child
as
as
their
their
child.
child.
They
They
do
do
not,
not, you know,
operate
operate
in
in
those
those
principles
principles
of
of
Kwanzaa
Kwanzaa
when
when
it
it
comes
comes
to
to
actually
actually
making
making
and
and
taking
taking
on
on
those
those
responsibilities
responsibilities
of the
of the
community.
community.
Because
Because
for
for
whatever
whatever
reason,
reason,
we
we
don't
don't
always
always
know
know
why
why
that
that
parent
parent
isn't
isn't
able
able
to
to
be
be
there,
there,
isn't
isn't
able
able
to
to
show
show
up
up
for
for
meetings
meetings
and,
and, you know,
sessions,
sessions,
but
but
to
to
actually
actually
have
have
somebody
somebody
else
else
to
to
be
be
able
able
to
to
say,
say,
no,
no,
you
you
can't
can't
come
come
but I'll make sure I represent your child and I pass the word back to you so that they know that they have somebody in their corner. And even when it comes to young people getting in trouble, oh, that's not my child, that's not my problem. But then when they start acting out, when they start breaking in cars and houses and knocking you down, then it's like, oh well, they should have had some type of guidance. Well, what stops you from actually stepping up and taking a child up under your wings and providing them with that mentorship and that guidance? And so I appreciate you for actually speaking to that point. And so when we talk about systems, right? Joanna, if you would tell us a little bit about some of the systems that you worked with or partnered with, and why you feel it's important to be able to have those connections within the community or within the school system to actually bring about change and awareness when it comes to parents' roles and influence and them not being disconnected and separated from the work.
I would say within the parent leadership, many parents um, are facing barriers such as incarceration, trauma, poverty, mental health struggles, and lack of access. So, with us being in a community that have many resources, transportation may be a barrier with them getting to and from to get to receive the service. Also, I started out with an organization called Parent to Parent of Georgia. I had children that had developmental delays, so I volunteered with that organization. And then as I learned around my child diagnosis, I became a supporting parent, where I was able to support another parent that had a child with autism or developmental delays or other, challenges. So I was able to support that parent one on one. So within that, I was able to actually connect with Georgia Parent Support Network to start a chapter to support many parents in the community from my lived experience, and I'm still learning. So.
Okay, and you spoke to a lot of different organizations that you found and partnered with along the way to help you and other parents to overcome some of these obstacles. Um, and it's interesting that you spoke on incarceration and poverty and even mental health, because those are definitely a lot of issues. I wouldn't even say issues; those are a lot of barriers that actually impact our community here in Southwest Georgia, specifically. And thinking about the parents' role when it comes to being seen as an expert instead of an obstacle, how do you feel the success rate changes for that child when these systems actually see parents as those experts and not as a hindrance or obstacle to actually helping that child grow? Because I've seen it, well, you sent them to us and let us do our job, but who knows the child better than their parents, especially when they have an active, engaged parent.
So I feel that when they bring parents to the table to be able to advocate, the closest parents to the problem are, closest to the solution. So when they bring the parents to the table, we're able to change policies. We're able to change laws. We know what's best for our children, what we need in our community. So it would be a great asset to include parents in whatever programming or initiatives that the community have, also organizations.
Okay. So Cassenda, from your perspective as a parent and your experiences, how important is it for parents to hold other parents accountable for stepping up and actually being those advocates for their children and making sure that if there is a concern, if there is a barrier, that those things are being addressed? Because a lot of times, within our community as people of color, we have a lot of pride and we operate in a lot of ego, and we don't want anybody to know that these are things that we're going through or challenges that we're facing. So how do we also advocate for parents to be advocates for their children?
By being true, stepping in as who you are. And I'm going to be transparent in this very moment. Yes, as a parent, my children have some issues at school. Yes, I do the very best that I can. I was just at the school yesterday advocating for my daughter. However, sometimes when you step in that space, me being a woman of the BIPOC community, I sometimes feel like they think that we're angry and aggressive. No, I want to know what happened. I want to sit here with my child, allow my child to have a voice, allow you to listen to my voice, and let's come to come to a conclusion. We know there was a problem, so let's have a solution. And that's what I want to tell parents, regardless of how they feel. When you step into that space, as long as you come with policies and procedures, doing things the proper way, still show up. I show up every time. And present yourself as your best self, the best you can be that day. Because being a parent is not easy. It is not easy. And there have been stereotypes put on our children. If they have a diagnosis, or if they come from a certain area, or if they don't dress a certain way, there has been barriers already, or decisions already made when our kids step into certain environments.
Like those preconceived notions.
Yes. So therefore, still show up. I'm gonna show up every time, even if I have on, and this is not really what it is, one shoe, because I am the mother in the shoe with my babies. And I'm not talking about the ones that I birthed. I'm talking about every child that has come behind me that needs support, as well as every parent.
Facts. And you've spoken to it, and I've actually witnessed it, and years ago I actually interviewed your children, and they themselves talked about some of the barriers that they faced going to school and how you've shown up, and if it wasn't for you showing up and being that active parent, things could have gone a lot different. And so when we talk about listening to the young people,
Listen.
and that's not just for teachers, that's not just for therapists, that's not just for administrators or doctors, but even for parents, right? Because sometimes that's the main way that we know what is actually needed to be advocated on, right? When it comes to us listening to our children and paying attention to those nonverbal sometimes. So, Joanna, if you would speak to the importance of us actually taking time to pay attention, with the open ear, open eye, open heart, and even listening to our children so that we're able to properly advocate on their behalf.
Yeah, sometimes we have to take our own judgment of our kids out the picture and really, really listen to them. Even if we got to document, through a journal of what, this happened or that happened. Or even if they got to, write in their journals of things that's going on daily or whatever, we really, really have to take our kids serious.
I agree, because if we don't take them serious, how do we expect for the world and people outside of the home to take them serious? And so that goes back to us being those first teachers, those first influencers, those first everything, right? And so oftentimes if we don't listen to them, if we don't let them know that they have a voice, that they're important, how do we expect for them to be able to go into different spaces, whether it's parks and recreation, whether it's the Boys and Girls Club, after school program, whatever it is, how do we expect for them to move through life if we do not value their voices? And how, again, are we able to actually advocate and show up on their behalf if we do not consider them as valuable? So for those parents who are often telling their kids, like, be quiet, don't talk, silencing them and not actually giving them that open ear to listen and be able to voice whatever issues they're experiencing at school. What would you say to those parents?
I was a child that could not address certain things. And I don't know if I went too far with allowing my kids to be open and honest. Um, but allow your children to talk because sometimes they may want to tell you things that I feel like every parent should have an open door policy within reason. I want my kids to tell me the good, the bad, the ugly because I am open to them. I have made a lot of mistakes. I'm growing with you guys. I think my kids have helped raise me, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
This is a new generation. Things are different from when I was born in the early 80s, 79, 80. That is not the world that we live in. So we need to allow our children to be honest, open, and be able to communicate. I'm not going to tell mine to hush. My children know they can come and say a little bit of everything to me. And for me, I tell people all the time, they don't get any younger. They get older, so we need to teach them how to move in this new world because this is not the world for me that I grew up in years ago. So we just need for them to be able to trust their own voice. Not just you trusting their voice, but them trusting their own voice. Teaching them while you're advocating for them how to advocate for themselves.
You want to speak to that, Joanna?
Um, I would say yes because having a kid is not use their voice to be able to speak. They're gonna find someone else to speak to. So I wouldn't say that's a good idea to not tell them to speak or suppress their feelings because you may be sorry later. So I would say allow them to actually be authentic and be able to talk to you about anything.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, you are now tuned in to Marz Majik. We are sitting down talking about parent leadership with Cassenda Nelson and Joanna Jackson, two amazing women who are doing their part to speak not only for their children and to raise awareness, but to be that advocate that is speaking, showing up, and showing out on behalf of all of our children. All right. This is where we go to a brief break. So don't you touch that dial. Don't you go anywhere because we will be back right after this.
best parent, but sometimes you be a better parent than your child.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Yes, you are now tuned in to Marz Majik, brought to you by Voices Radio, where valuable opportunities inspire collaborations through conversations to elevate society. If you're just tuning in, we are joined by Cassenda Nelson and Joanna Jackson, and we are talking about parent leadership, and parent leadership is one of those essential things that we most definitely need more of within our communities to prevent that self destruction that we just heard about. All right. So, parent leadership is powerful, but it's also emotional labor, it's spiritual labor, it's physical labor. And tonight, we hit our herbal corner as we do always, to provide us with those tools for nourishment, calm, and to help us maintain that resilience. First up is oat straw. It is a deeply nourishing herb that helps to assist the nervous system. It is restorative for burnout and chronic stress. Next is peppermint. It helps to clear that mental fog, it supports focus, and refreshes depleted energy. Last and certainly not least is lemon balm. Lemon balm is one of those herbs that is actually like one of my favorites. I use it almost in everything. Um, it helps to soothe anxiety, lift that emotional heaviness, and it supports caregivers holding multiple roles. These herbs are not just good for parents, they're not just good for when you're on the break of that burnout or in deep into those anxious moments when you're actually experiencing that mental fog. But these are herbs that we can use beforehand, during, and after to help us maintain, not only when it comes to our nervous system and supporting that focus or helping us to ease anxiety, but these are herbs that we can use on a regular basis for multiple purposes when it comes to us and our physical well being, as well as emotional support and those spiritual tools that we can go into our bag and pull out. It's nothing like a nice cup of tea, and not the kind that spreads negativity. All right. So, Joanna, Cassenda, when it comes to you all and taking care of yourselves, because like I stated earlier, just being a parent alone is heavy work, let alone actually going out and taking on the role and responsibility of advocacy work, not just for your children, but for other children. So, what are some tools, what are some techniques or routines that you engage in on a regular basis to help you when emotions start to weigh, when that stress is coming down, or just to maintain that balance?
I believe in taking a bath. What people fail to realize, a shower is not just for cleaning the skin, but it is for releasing whatever you have carried for that particular day. So I may get in the shower and wash my hair and just let every burden, every barrier I have faced, every hurtful thought that came to me, because I no longer take in other people's thoughts about me. It's me against me every day. The self sabotage and the I can't do it, and I rinse it off. And rinsing it off for me leaves me lighter, because by the end of the day, I feel heavy, and I journal.
Okay.
I would say for me, the therapeutic writing. I love purchasing words of affirmation, teas that that speak different light to myself and individuals. Um, I also would say when I actually come home, I actually just sit in my car. I might not have on no music, no nothing, but that's just my little me time to say woosah. So I would say those are some things, and then I love to draw or color. So those are some things that I enjoy.
Okay. All right. So both of you spoke to things that sometimes seem a little cliche, right? Or a little like, whatever. Yeah, okay. Nevertheless, they are tools that we often take for granted, like a long hot shower. I had somebody come on and they was like, "Oh yeah, I take me like a 2-3 hour shower." I'm like, 2-3 hours, you running the water? Nevertheless, like, no, that's serious. And when we think about the elements, when we think about water, fire, earth, wind, water is definitely purifying, just like fire, you know what I'm saying? But water is something that we can actually put on ourselves that's not going to cause us any harm or danger. And we for real get to wash away. And for all of, I'm a little unorthodox and out of the box. Nevertheless, regardless of how you've grown up spiritually, water is always one of those things that has been used across denominations, religious based institutions to bring about cleansing. It's restorative. And so I appreciate you bringing that up, because sometimes it's just all about us shifting our intention while we're actually in the shower. And instead of saying, okay, I'm gonna just hop in the shower real quick, freshen up. But no, when you actually sit in the shower and you speak even those affirmations that Joanna was talking about over yourself while you're in the shower, to release and remove and say, I release today. I let go of today with every wash of the sponge, you know what I'm saying? With every scrub of the hair. And so, coloring. I love to color. I love to color. Coloring is one of those things, like, since I can remember, has always brought a sense of peace and calm, because you get to choose and pick the colors, right? Even if you just doodle a little bit, but you get to be the creator. You know what I'm saying? You get to take back control, even if it's just for a little bit. And then sitting in the car, sometimes, I've heard people in relationships say, oh, well, is it that bad when you get home? You don't want to go in the house. You just got to sit in the car. You know what I'm saying? But it's not necessarily that going into your house is that bad. It's the fact that you do not want to take into your home all of those things that you've accumulated throughout the day, and you want to actually take that time again to woosah, to breathe with intention and release those things. So when you go into your house, you have a different mindset. You're able to refocus and recenter yourself so that you're not bringing those things home with you, and you know what I'm saying, further creating chaos or dishevel, you know what I'm saying? And so I appreciate you all mentioning all of those things. When it comes to the therapeutic writing and journaling, if you would speak a little bit more on what that looks like.
I would say, even with adults and children, like going back when we was talking about suppressing our voice, a lot a lot of individuals, I would speak for me. Sometimes I can be selective in, where I speak and when I want to speak. So a lot of times that give me a chance to, release that through journaling. Even with my kids, I make sure they have journals through, writing. I was like, okay, if you don't want to talk to me right now, write in your journal, and we'll go back to this later.
Okay.
Hmm.
I've most definitely found that since I've been back in August, the majority of the guests that have been on the show actually journal, whether it's men or women. And I'm always happy to hear, my brothers talking about journaling, because I remember growing up, it was kind of like, oh, boys don't do that. It was looked at as a diary, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, girls keep diaries, girls keep journals, boys don't. And so to know that we're progressing and expanding our minds and opening up and actually providing these alternative outlets for our male children to be able to express themselves. All right. And so, speaking of males, before we go into our Black History Corner, if you would tell me a little bit about when you're moving about throughout the community and doing the work that you do, what the male presence looks like, or lack of male presence when it comes to parent leadership and child advocacy.
I have seen a lot of fathers step up. Do they feel safe in the space? Sometimes no, because again, prejudgment. I would like to see more men step up because being a parent gets heavy. And I think that the more and more they show up, the stronger the family unit in our community will be. I can't do it all by myself. I have a softer voice compared to my son's father. So for him to step in and support me, that feels good. And I think that the community, I think people will embrace that connection more if they saw the father step up. I know that our men are working or may have other barriers that keep them from being in the space that we as mothers we feel like we have to be. And I'm never going to take away from the fact that some men are providers or some men may have other barriers. But I wish that they could step in a little bit more because we need them. We need y'all. We appreciate y'all, even when you think we don't.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to our men, I think we need to pour into them a little bit more so they can see what we see, how important they are, the worth that they carry, and that their presence is needed.
Joanna, you have anything to add?
Yes, I would say, with the men in the community, they want to do things in the community. They want to have something to do. They want to be involved, get involved, advocate around needs in policies and initiatives. I know I was talking to a dad a couple months ago, and I was doing outreach with
Mm-hmm.
Connect the Dots. Connect the Dots is actually dad chapter, dads of tiny infants, toddlers, teenagers, and transitional young adults. And he looked at the brochure and he just paused for a minute and was like, wow, it's been so many things for mothers, organization that serves mothers and give mothers resources. It haven't been really an organization, by us for us. So they actually want to be brought to the table with, any initiative. So
If there's any organization programs, I know Connected Dots do a weekend in the community, but if it's anyone out there that have something available for men in the community, please reach out through Nexus to me, and I will be able to, send some fathers and men your way because they want to be able to be in these spaces.
That's beautiful. Um, both sides of that. The fact that, we do see them as valuable. We most definitely appreciate their presence and what they represent and stand for. And also appreciating the fact that, and even changing and rewriting the narrative that our men do not want to be present, that they do not want to step up, and that they are not showing up, because we know that that's a false narrative that society has put on our communities, and a lot of times we pick that up and run with it. However, we have to actually look around us and say, hold on, wait a minute. Every activity I've been to, his daddy has showed up or her dad is always around, and we most definitely need more of that, because that again is helping to bridge the gap and show our young people, something different that some of us didn't have when we were growing up, and that there are a lot of male initiatives that are starting to spark off, and not even just for fathers, but even for younger males, because oftentimes when I was growing up, it was the same thing. There's so many programs and organizations for young girls and little girls, but what do we have for our boys? And they deserve to know that they are valuable. They deserve to have spaces and outlets to be able to express themselves and to grow and gain those leadership skills and abilities that we know they possess. And so I appreciate you all for advocating and even speaking to that male leadership when it comes to parental roles. All right. So right now, we are going to jump into our Black Indigenous history fact and local legacy moment. This round, we take a moment, as we always do, to honor those who have built the pathways before us. Tonight, we honor the late Mrs. Carol King, a local Black woman, educator, organizer, and community pillar whose work shaped generations. Carol King began her work in education and community organizing at a young age, understanding early on that access, not talent, again, access, not talent, was often the barrier facing Black and working class families. She became instrumental in helping to establish the Harambe program here in Albany, Georgia. Shout out to Harambe! Anybody who attended Harambe, like, yo, we definitely need like a reunion or something, because Head Start has done amazing things, and Harambe later played a key role in the launching of Head Start initiatives in the community during a time when early childhood education was not widely prioritized for marginalized families. Carol also believed that parents were not problems to be managed, but partners to be trusted. Her work centered family voice, early learning, and collective responsibility long before these ideas became common language. Her legacy reminds us that parent leadership has always been at the heart, the center, the root of community transformation. All right. And, I have my cousin joining us in the background, and the impact that Mrs. King has had on our family and families like ours, from providing parents with jobs to those programs for fathers like you talked about, and just seeing the value in parents in their involvement and engagement and making it easy for them to be able to step up and do what they needed to do for their children, and providing that mentorship and that empowerment has been so powerful. And her legacy continues to ring not just in Albany, Georgia, but throughout Southwest Georgia. All right. So when you hear stories like that of Miss Carol King and the work that she's done to connect families and community, what do you feel or see your legacy being through the work that you're doing currently?
I am so thankful for you bringing up Miss King. Um, I want to leave. Well, I want my legacy to be that even myself, I've made a lot of mistakes along the way, and we can make a change. I will hold myself accountable for the moments I did not know how to be the right parent, or the moments that I did not say the right words or show up in the right capacity. But if you keep trying, every time I showed up different. I expected myself to do something differently. I want, you don't have to look a certain way. You don't have to, I want my legacy. I want people to see Cassenda Nelson. I'm still Cassenda Nelson, but I chose something different. I chose to
Mm-hmm.
be that light, to show my light, something I did not know I had. Because I'm quite sure Miss King didn't think we would be talking about her today.
Right.
So you never get your flowers in that moment. But I want to be something that somebody can look back and say, I remember Cassandra. You know, Cassandra, you know how people never forget your past. But I'm doing something different. So, regardless of what lens you see me from or know me from, know that I'm here to make a change. And I'll still stand in who I was when you knew me. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I forgive myself. And I'm hoping that they can forgive me too for when I was wrong. But I want to make some things right.
That's love. That's growth. That's healing. Your thoughts, Joanna, when it comes to your legacy or even any other influencers throughout history, like Miss King, that you look to as empowerment to continue to do the work that you do.
I would say I'm very thankful for my accountability partners and my mentors because with them I was able to learn that I actually had a voice, that I can advocate for myself, that I can turn my lemons into lemonade, that I might not was the best parent, but I could be a better grandparent, and you just never forget, where you come from. Those dark, nights, those dark moments or whatever, it's always light on the other side. So my legacy is through, my grandchild. So I'm just trying to be the best, grandparent that I can be.
That's love. And I appreciate you all again for coming and being open and vulnerable and sharing your lived experiences and how you've taken those and transmuted them into actually becoming change agents and being able to look back and reflect even on yourself, and hold yourself accountable in order to hold other parents accountable. Because when parents lead, our children thrive. The impact doesn't stop there because it takes us standing up and holding ourselves accountable again as parents in order for us to build those strong families and those safer communities, in order for us to see the generational impact and the legacy actually be made manifest. Because February is recognized for a whole lot of things. However, at the root of it is parents. And if there are not parents, there are not children. And if we don't have children, we do not have a future. And so we really have to be more mindful when we actually think about or don't think about procreating and what that could possibly look like, and the challenges that come along with being a parent, and whether or not we're actually prepared. And even if we aren't, when we step into that role, actually being able to say, I wasn't ready, but I'm willing to try and to continue showing up and doing the best that I can until I'm actually being the parent that I desire to be, so that my child or my children actually have a stronger, safer, better preparation than what I might have had. All right. Before we close out, um, because y'all have most definitely given us a lot to think about, a lot to sit with, a lot to process, even when it comes to internal reflection. And that's what Marz Majik is all about, us being able to bridge culture, community, for the overall goal of healing and unification. Because if we do not take these opportunities to hold these conversations, to make these connections, we won't see progress. We won't see those stronger, safer communities. We won't see, those legacies continue to be great. And so, before we close, do you all have any final words, any thoughts of encouragement, motivation for parents or children?
For parents, it doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter how you look. It doesn't matter what you have done in the past. I tend to tell people I have the voice of a lion and the endurance of an eagle. As long as you don't stop, you will be successful. I believe in that. There were days that I did not want to get up. I had someone to say, Cassenda, we got to keep moving. That was my accountability person. My person that brought me from always being angry and always wanting to hit things in a different light. Joanna. She sometimes don't talk. I was always the one talking. And she taught me how to bring it to the middle. I'm thankful for that. Bring it to the middle. Be mindful. And that has been 5 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And I can feel and see the difference. As a parent, I'm not as stressed. I watched her, and it put me in a place of empowerment.
That's like,
And I just want to say to the parents and children, if there's breath in your body, there's hope, and just continue on driving.
all right. Um, Before we go, hold on, because I saw something. We got a proclamation. Let's then we got a parent leadership
Yes, we
proclamation.
did. I brought it, but it's in
It's okay. You want to just talk a little bit about that before we go, and what actually motivated you to actually have a proclamation done in honor of Parent Leadership Month?
Yes, ma'am. I want to let Joanna do it because a lot of ideas are hers. I just follow suit. That was not me.
Okay.
We wanted for so February is National Parent Leadership Month, so we actually wanted to do one for locally for our community. So we was able to you know, create it for Doherty County for us to do, for proclamation for Doherty County, but it's for to recognize parents, all type of parents, grandparents, foster parents, or whatever, but to be able to recognize some parents to feel seen and heard, because there are parents out there doing the work. There are parents out there, volunteering, doing working, doing what they got to do in the schools, taking off work, you know. Sometimes with our community and the violence and things, parents can get a bad, rep or whatever. But to be able to highlight those parents that are doing the work or who would like to step in and do, engage in the community, do parent engagement, so they'll have something to do not only in February but throughout the year.
I want to add this. I wish that we could bridge that gap between school systems and parents. We are not your ops. I want to make that very clear. I want to be your ally. You're with my baby just as much as I am.
Sometimes longer.
So please,
If we being all the way real.
yes, let's connect because I think we will get better results from our children if I could walk into your space and you not feel like I'm there watching you. No, ma'am, I'm watching my child. I want them to be the better person. Please, let's connect with the school system.
Ooh, I was about to get on my box right then because it's like, why would you feel like, if even if I was there to watch you and how you're moving throughout your classroom and what your processes look like, why would you be offended by that? Are you doing something that you shouldn't be doing? Are you, what I'm saying, not actually living up to the standard of an actual teacher or educational professional when it comes to me leaving my child with you? Because if that's the attitude and that's the mindset, maybe we shouldn't be leaving our children in these facilities, these institutions, when it comes to education, because 9 times out of 10, our children are in classrooms with people who look like them. And if they cannot feel safe with you, if they cannot feel protected with you, then there's most definitely a disconnect and an issue that needs to be resolved. And I can do a whole nother hour just on that. Nevertheless, we at our time and we are going to breathe out the same way that we breathed in. All right. So let's inhale presence. We are going to hold and then we'll exhale and release. So on 3, breathe with me. 1, 2, 3. Inhale, exhale. One more time. Inhale all that purpose. Inhale and exhale that fear. Because it has no room here. You understand me? Our closing affirmation: I trust my voice. I honor my story. I lead with love and intention. I trust my voice. I honor my story. I lead with love and intention. Last time for the people in the back. I trust my voice. I honor my story. I lead with love and intention. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another dose of Marz Majik. Much love and gratitude to and for Joanna and Cassenda for their leadership, honesty, and care. I'm your host, Nexus. Until next time, stay rooted, stay connected, and always stay in your magic.
Let's go.